Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Legatics product update webinar. My name is Rob McAdam. I'm the new Chief Product Officer for Legatics, 5 weeks into the role. So it's good to see you all. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get going on the webinar today. So there is a Q&A function, so you can use the Q&A to ask questions as we're going along. And we'll come to those at the end. So we'll address any questions you might have at the end. You can also, when you ask the question in the Q&A, you have the option to be anonymous. So if you want to be anonymous when you ask the question, please do that. And then finally, we are recording the session. So if you need to step away or leave for any reason, or you want to revisit any of the topics within the webinar today, you've got that recording that'll be circulated afterwards. Right, so let's jump in. Let me share my screen and we can get into things. Okay. Bear with me, I'm just going to share it now. Okay, so product update. So just before we get going, I thought it'd be useful just for me to quickly give an introduction to myself, actually, because I've just joined the business. I thought it'd be useful. So a little bit about me. So my name's Rob McAdam. I joined about 5 weeks ago as Chief Product Officer at Legatics. My background is as a former M&A and private equity lawyer, but I left practice 10 years or so ago because I was just determined to really improve the experience for lawyers and how they get their work done using technology. So I moved into various different legal technology roles for law firms like Pinsent and Ashurst in the UK. And I've led and worked with product teams across HiQ, Thomson Reuters on it, Busy Lamp in Germany, and Elevate in the US. And so I've got a good level of experience about how firms and corporate legals and the legal tech industry works across UK, Europe, and the US markets as well. But I guess if you ask me, the reason I joined Legatics is because I'm still absolutely determined to transform the deal experience for lawyers and clients. I actually don't think much has changed since I was in practice, and I think it should. And I think Legatics is the perfect platform to help improve that experience for lawyers and clients and make deals better and make the transaction management experience better. Okay, so the agenda for today is that we're going to look at what have we been doing in the last 12 months? So all the great stuff that we've been doing as a business in the last 12 months, what's coming next? So what are we working on? And then we'll talk a little bit about vision and the direction of travel and where we think we're going in the future as well. So let's dive into the 12-month review. So it has been a busy 12 months. So we've had 4 major releases in the last 12 months, and they have delivered 5 key features. We'll talk about those a little bit more in detail in a second. One of those is notifications, though. So we've revamped all the notifications within the platform. So that transparency, that information flowing to users about what's going on within the platform and giving them more control is so much better now. And we must have been doing something right because we have seen huge upticks in the number of users over the last 12 months and a large increase in the number of matters that are being created in the platform, which is absolutely fantastic to see. So if our aim is to transform legal transactions, bringing more users and lawyers into the system and having more deals done through Legatics is helping us move towards that end goal. And for those that remember, we had the previous Legatics 1 platform. We've recently replatformed into Legatics 2. So we eventually shut down Legatics 1 in the last 12 months. That's great, and it's great that we're on Legatics 2. We've got plans, we've got areas we want to go and innovation within the platform we want to deliver, and having a really solid base to do that is absolutely fantastic. So that was great news. So let's just look at in a bit more detail what have we actually been doing then, and what have we been delivering. So like I said, there were kind of 5 key areas really that we were focused on and we delivered on in the last 12 months. So notifications was one of them. So users have now way more control over their notifications. So users can set up whether they want to have a scheduled delivery of notifications on a periodic basis for matters, whether they want to have a daily digest, the triggers and types of activity that can send those emails a lot more granular now, gives the user more control over those. And then we've got the in-app notifications. Now, I will show you that in a second. We're going to take a look at notifications. The other thing we've been improving is navigation and UI enhancements. So we made some navigation improvements like displaying the current matter name or the matter dropdown. We moved some of the navigation items like knowledge base roadmap into the help sections. We also made some UI enhancements around things like single and multi-select columns. You can now easily duplicate rows, columns, and sections, or drag and drop multiple rows or sections around, and you can control things like bulk permissioning across rows as well. So really nice navigation and UI enhancements. And then on wet ink and signature collation, we now support the automated collation of uploaded wet ink signatures. We can detect pages and help match those to the documents and the signatories. And then we've got the ability for users to edit, reorder, annotate the pages before finally bringing those together into one consolidated, fully signed PDF that can then go into be binded, etc. Net documents, so we introduced the net documents integration as well. So we now play nice with net documents. You can push and pull documents to and from Legatics and net documents, and we support multiple NetDocs repositories per instance as well. Okay, and then finally, on kind of the big ticket items, binder word templates. This is another one we'll look at in a second, but we've launched binder word templates. So I'll talk about this in a second, but one of the big things coming is the revamped binders module. But to get ahead of that, we actually launched binder word templates in the last release. And this is just allowing firms and customers to actually create their binder index templates now, so that when independent binders does launch, it's all ready to go and you can use those templates. So we've got binder word templating that allows you to create custom branded word templates, as many as you want, for different types of indexes. And you can then categorize those templates and configure those templates for different styles so that they can be used with the bindering module. But we'll look at that in a second as well. Other few things, we've got matter statuses now. There's been some improvements on the admin side of things as well, with things like company and office management, matter search and filtering. The dashboard enhancements with the reporting is much improved, and we've got bring your own key. But it's not always just about the product enhancements. There's a lot that goes alongside that, and we've been improving the knowledge base. So we've rewritten the whole knowledge base, and we've now got a much broader library of interactive demos and story lanes to support users to use our platform. So there's a lot that's happened there, and we're really pleased with the progress over the last 12 months. Okay, so I said I'd show you two things from the recent release, notifications and the binder template. So let me just jump into that now. So I'm just going to shift across, and we'll go into Legatics and take a look. So like I said, two things, notifications and the word templates. So first off, notifications. So as a user now in Legatics, I can come in, and if I go to my account, you'll see that I've got some new options within here. So I've got the notifications, but this looks a little bit different. So first off, I can specify how do I want to get email notifications. At the moment, I've got it set to a daily digest. So I can say once a day, give me the information, and I can then say, do it at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. or at the end of the day. I can specify that. Then I've got the scheduled updates. If I wanted to get a scheduled update on each of my matters, I can also do that. But I can also specify how frequently I want to get those, so that I don't get necessarily completely bombarded in real time. I might say, you can give them to me every 15 minutes, every hour, every 2 hours, and go right up to 4 hours. So between 15 minutes and 4 hours, you can have scheduled delivery updates. And then you've got your triggers. So it's a lot more granular now in terms of what you will get notified about. But it's not a switch it all on or switch it all off. It's granular. So you can actually toggle on or off certain types of triggers within here. So you can specify what you want to be notified about by email. So users have got a lot more control over their notifications now. And it's not just email notifications though. So it's now in app. So if I go to the top as well, you can see within the platform notifications, I've got the bell and I've got the badge. It says 14. So if I take a look at that, what it's going to show me is the same notifications I'd get by email, but I'm now getting the notifications in the platform as well. So I can see what's happened, if a document's been uploaded, a new assignment has been made, status has changed. I can see what's happened, some context about it, when the notification was sent, what's unread, and I've got some control over marking things as read, etc. Just showing on the unread messages. So there's some great enhancements. It may seem simple, but notifications is just so fundamental to any platform, any project management type platform where deals are getting done. You need to stay informed, you need that transparency, but you don't want to be overwhelmed. And I think the notifications improvements really move this forward. Okay, so the other thing that we need to have a look at is on the templating. So if I jump into the admin section now, we'll take a look at the templating. So bind the templating. Before we do that, actually, this is a great opportunity. I mentioned one of the improvements we made was around the dashboarding in the admin module, and this is a really good example. So you can see now when you come into admin, there is so much more information, whether that's matters created or members created per month, breaking down matters by office or by companies. You've got kind of almost leaderboards on the right hand side about top matter creators. You've got live matters, so much more information, and obviously that's still alongside the reporting, which allows you to generate JSON or CSV outputs of the data within the platform. So we're really trying to move this forward and give you more information, more data to help drive better decision making. But we're here because we want to look at the templates. So here now in the Word templates, you can see we've got the binders at the top. So this is where you would go, or an admin would go, to create binder templates. So you'd come in here and essentially you can create any number of binder templates that you want, and you would categorize those templates in different sections. Excuse me. So you got banking and finance, for example, or corporate, and then you're just going to add different templates to those sections. It could be practice areas, it could be offices, it could be jurisdictions. You can categorize these however you want. There's no rule on how these are categorized. Now, firms will always have their style of index with their branding, with their formatting style. And so essentially this is where you would bring those in. But you might bring them in. It may be you've got your banking and finance index style, you've got your corporate index style, and this is where you upload them and bring them in. And what we need to know when we create an index within Legatics, we need to know what styling to use. So if I was to go to the private equity index, you can see I've already uploaded the index. And actually I can show you an example. So this is the index that I uploaded. It's Legatics branded because I uploaded it with our branding, but this could be any firm branding. You can see you just have to have the placeholders for things like the binder name, the variables for the binder name, matter description. And then I've actually just added some of the styling in, and it is very loud, and that's purpose. I did that on purpose to try and emphasize the point. But this is in Word, you have the different styles. You have a table style or a level 1 title style, level 2, level 3 document styles. So let's just imagine these are the different stylings within the template. Now, what that means is that when we come back in and when we upload that, we have a few settings to configure. So what table style should Legatics use from that document? So we're just using the normal table style in that document. We can specify for different sections within the table, depending on the level, what fill color to use, what text color to use. And also sections, if we need to drop in when we generate a binder index, we need to generate a level 1 section title, what styling should be used from that document, and then same with documents as well. So we have a few different options. You can configure that all. You can also download and then replace the file as well if you need to. Excuse me. And that essentially just builds up the index, and you've got all the information you need, all the configuration you need, and then you can publish. And this has already been published. So essentially this gets you to a point where you can build up your template library. And like I said, this is important for moving on to the new binder module that we're going to be introducing later this year. Okay, so that's the template setup, and we'll come back and we're going to look at binders, and you'll see how this all fits together in kind of the wider framework. Okay, so let me just jump back to the presentation and just go back into slideshow. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what is coming next. So what are we working on? And as I said, and as I keep emphasizing, one of the key things that we're working on is the revamp binders. So it's been possible for a while to generate a binder within Legatics, but what that really was essentially duplicating a list, stripping it back of certain columns, having to do a little bit of editing on it, and then generating. It's not been the best experience, And it's also not standalone, so it requires you to have a list to then generate the binder. And we know that sometimes you just might need to generate the binder without having a list. It may just be useful to put a load of documents in there, structure them all out, generate your binder, and away you go. So we're doing it as a standalone module. It's going to allow users to coordinate and move around the documents and get them in the right order and sections, so you've got the right binder structure. You can then apply the Word templates for the indexes. You can get files from your computer. You're going to be able to get files from a list. You could even bring files in from iManage or Net Documents. And then you can export it out as a zip or a single PDF, which is really important. So that's something that's coming later this year, and we're really excited by it, and we think it's going to really move the needle on the bindering experience. And it also is the first step in the move towards more of a modularization within Legatics as well. We'll have the lists module, we'll have the binders module, and then hopefully later this year we're also going to have the data rooms module. So obviously, as a transaction management platform, we are concerned with how deals get done. And a big part of transactions is that secure file sharing, whether that's just sharing sensitive information as part of the transaction, or whether it's more of a data room as part of a formal due diligence process. It's always important to be able to share documents. And we want Legatics to support that. And so we're launching the data room module. It's going to be a simpler, slimmed down data room. It's not going to have necessarily all the bells and whistles of some of the leading data room providers, but I don't think it needs to. When I remember being in practice and building data rooms and the kind of functionality that actually was used and what was needed, it was stripped back to some of the essentials. So file and folder structures, numbering, version control, permissioning, being able to bring in an index or get an index out, import files in bulk, export files in bulk, all of those things we've been looking at, and as well as the auditing and tracking. So we're really excited by this, and we see it as one, again, not only a step in our journey on the modularization, but it's also really important because we're trying to do more of the deal process. And this moves us earlier in the deal process by bringing in data room for diligence, and then you move into the checklist, and then you move into signing, and then you move into binders, and you can start to see how we're piecing together more of that transaction lifecycle. And then we've got the file viewing. So it's often necessary within within systems that have documents stored in them to be able to allow users to quickly view that document. It's quite useful. We can, at the moment, allow users to view a PDF in the browser, which is great. But when it comes to Word documents or PowerPoint documents or images, etc., it becomes a little bit more tricky. We just want to make it simple. If you want to see a document that's in Legatics, you can click and you can see it and you can review it. Simple as that. And so if you need to check whether a certain clause was updated correctly, or maybe check the consideration amount or the share number or whatever it might be, you can open that document, view it. You'll have things like search and navigation as well. So it's going to make it very easy. So we're really excited by this as well, because it's a small improvement, but a really valuable improvement, because it's helping users to continue working with an unbroken workflow and actually see the information they need within the documents without having to leave the platform. And building on this, once we have file viewing in place, what we would like to do is introduce the comparison functionality. So because there are several versions where you can store several versions of a document within Legatics, it makes sense that we allow users to say, what's the difference between version 2 and 3? Again, it's all about stopping that context switching, stopping users having to leave the platform to get their jobs done. We want them to be doing the jobs as much as possible in the platform they're working in, like Legatics. So we will be looking at introducing comparisons and being able to select different documents and compare those documents and then output those track changes as well. And then on the modular story, we will be looking at, and this is probably one more for beginning work next year, but we're looking at the signing process. Again, there is signing, and we've got signature packs, and we've got the collate functionality in e-signatures, etc. But we want to make that a little bit more independent, again, on that modularization journey. And we also want to look at, can we make it better for certain jurisdictions as well? Can we make it better, for example, for the US signing process, and really help that move along? Things like generating signature blocks. So we're looking, we're consulting, we're researching, we're looking at what we want to do here. But this is a big area of focus for us going forward, is how do we improve that signing capability? And I think once we have that signing capability alongside our binder capability, that closing use case becomes really strong, really compelling. And then when you bring in data rooms and you bring in lists, you start to really build out that end-to-end transaction lifecycle process. But whilst we want to do as much as possible in Legatics from a transaction perspective, we also know we need to play nice. We need to work alongside other tools, other systems, because people's workflows aren't necessarily confined to one platform. And whether it's data or whether it's process, often need to work across systems. And so we are looking at introducing Legatics API that's just going to allow you to build connections, or for partners or us to build connections with different systems. So you can start to weave Legatics into your wider ecosystem, but it's not an island. It's not going to be siloed. It's actually going to be fully integrated, connected. So whether that's with things like practice management systems or document management systems, or whether it's CRMs or whatever it might be, you've got that ability to tie it all together. Okay, so before we look at the vision and where we're going, what I wanted to do is just take a moment to actually just look at binders in a bit more detail. It's not released yet, but I'm going to give it a go to show you where we're going with this. And it's of course it's timed out because I've been talking. So let me just log back in and then we can get going. But yeah, what I want to do is really show you how this is working and how we're thinking about binders and how this is going to work in practice. So let me just get in and then we'll be away. Okay, so we're in. So like I said, this is not released, and we've looked at the templating piece which sits within the admin app, but what we're looking at now is binders within the actual main platform. So you can see at the top we've got a binder navigation item. This isn't a list. This is an entirely new piece of functionality. It's a new module. So when you click create now, you've now got the ability to create a list, or you can create a binder. And what we've done, and I've actually created this binder, and that's why we're seeing the documents here, because I've already created it and it's sitting at the top. But you can create multiple binders per matter. This is particularly useful if you want to create different binders for different recipients. You can have different ones with maybe more documents, less documents, different section titles. You can craft them whichever way you want. But if we were to create a binder, for example, I get asked to name it. Now, we know that this is very different across different jurisdictions. I used to call it a Bible when I was in practice, or a bundle. We know in the US, it's a little bit more about closing folders or closing sets. You can name it whatever you want. We're not going to be opinionated about it. So that's why there's a nice long name title, whatever you want to call this, you can. And then you've got the option to select which index style you want to use. So do you want to use a content style? Do you want to use a tabular style? And when you do create this binder first, it's going to be empty, and Matter admins have access to it right from the start. If you then want to bring in other people, you can, and I'll show you the permissioning in a second. I'm not going to create one now because we've already got one created, and we'll talk through that. But that's the process for creating the binder. And once you do create that, it would go into whatever you called it, goes into the navigation at the top. Okay, so what we've got here is the view of all the documents that sit within this binder, and you can already see that they're structured. We've got sections, we've got subsections, we've got documents, we've got numbering. Now, how do I get those documents in there? So you can get documents into the binder in a few different ways. So if I go to add, you got documents, and then I can add from my computer. So I might just have all the documents on the computer that I just want to drop in there and then structure an order. I might actually have them and want to pull them in from a list. So I could just click list and then bring them in from a list as well if I wanted to. And like I said, we're going to have I manage net documents here as well. So you'll have additional options for where you bring those documents in. But essentially bring them in, choose what you want, get it in here. Now the key task in bindering is just getting things, obviously things complete, but obviously getting things in the right order. So that's what this interface does. You can create sections. So you might, at the top here, you can see you can create a section. In the main navigation down here, you can, within a section, for example, if you wanted to add a subsection, you can. If you wanted to add another section above or below, you can. If you want to add documents to a section, you can just add documents to a specific section if you wanted to. You can rename the sections. You can rename the documents. If you want to, if you think actually it's better for this document to sit within here, you can bring it into that section. Now this is actually important. You can see at the top, we got a little notification there. because I changed the binder, it's saying actually it doesn't reflect the last binder you generated. So I'll come back to that, but just remember that it flagged that I'd made a change. So essentially you just go through the process, make sure everything's in order. You've got your right sections, the right documents are all there in the right order. You can, if you wanted to, you've got some controls on the right. So if you want to download the document or delete it, you can also do that. But this is really just giving you the ability to get it in the right order. If you want to, you can search. If you can search by document name if you wanted to. Now, the key thing then is once the documents are there and in order, it's about configuration. So if you click configure, you can see this binder was created with a content style index. Now, this is grayed out because we haven't switched this bit on yet, but this is where it interrelates with the templating. So we created the template earlier. This is where you could select the type of template you wanted to use for this particular binder index. It's just a standard one at the moment. But you've also got some other options. So I've got a contents style index. I've chosen to right align the numbers. So it's the document and then the number, and I'm referring to the document number. Now, that's grayed out as well. So why is that grayed out? It's because there are two options for exporting a binder. You can export it as a single PDF, or you can export it as a zip file of an index and all the documents. If you want to export it as a single PDF, there'll be page numbers, and you could specify that actually the content should refer to the page number, not the document. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But where you use where you have a content style index, you have the separator. So you can choose how should, and this is where it's right aligned, document and number, what separator do you want to use in between? So you've got a few different options there, dots, dashes, solid line, etc. And then the format, this is what I was talking about. We've chosen to export this as a zip, but you could also say, let's do this as a single PDF. So everything's going to be brought together into one PDF document with the index and all the documents. If you select that, you've got a few other options. So you can add bookmarks and hyperlinks and separate pages between documents if you wanted to. And then to my point a second ago, I come back to index. Now, because it's a single PDF, I could say actually the content should refer to the page number as well. So there's some configuration options. So step one, get the documents in, get them in the right order. Step two, configure how you want that index and the output to appear, and then you can preview it. So what I'll do is I actually got three different options open that I'm going to show you. So just to kind of emphasize the point, what does a lot of this look like? So if we come here, for example, this is an example of a index template, and again I'll just emphasize the point, it's Legatics branding because that's for the demo purpose. This would be firm branding, but you've got this contents index with the document number and document name. It may be that you want to look at the separator. So you've got the document name, separator, document number, or page number. And then you've also got the tabular view. So you can also, if you wanted to go tabular, you can go tabular with your index as well. So that was again, in the configuration here, if we switch that back into table, you can see that's going to export the indexes table. There's a lot more limited options with table, but we might come to that and talk through that a little bit more later. So essentially you configure it, you can preview it, and then you can generate. So once what we do is we separate the generation process. So once everything's in place, you generate, the binder will then be whirring away, kind of being created in the background. That's important because there's a lot of we have to compile the different pages, particularly for a single PDF. And then when that's generated, then you can export it. And you can export it. It's going to be exported as a zip file, and it's going to go to my computer. But there'll be different destinations like iManage or NetDocuments, and you can get that. You can get the binder out and into the place that you need it to go. Now, just to mention, you saw earlier when I changed something here, it said the binder was out of sync, or it doesn't reflect the latest changes. That's because I'd previously generated the binder and then I moved a document about, and it was just telling me, and that's what the little warning here is that if you generate a binder now, it's going to be generating something that was the previous iteration of it. So I would technically need to generate again to update it with my changes, and then I can export it. Okay, so couple of last things on the binders, permissioning. So like I said, when the binder is created, then the matter admins have access to it. and then they can add whoever needs access. So here you can see you can either be view, which is you can view and export the binder, or you can have edit rights as well, which is edit the binder. So you just come in. It's much simpler in terms of just setting those permissions. Keep it very simple. So who needs to view and who needs to be able to get the binder, who needs to be actually compile the binder. And then on the right hand side, you've got a few options around things like renaming it, duplicating it. That's important because if you want to create a different binder for a different recipient, then you need to be able to, it would be nice to be able to duplicate it, maybe take a section out or add a section in for a different recipient. So you can do that without having to go through the whole process of structuring it all again. And then you've got things like copy ID and link, etc., or completely delete the binder if you wanted to. So that's a sneak peek of the binders. Like you can see there's a few things that we're still working on, but we just wanted to be really open with you about how that works. Last thing I'll just mention actually is we talked about exporting it and the kind of zip or the single PDF. Let me just give you, I can actually give you an example of that. This is a single PDF that we generated. So you can see we've got the content style index, all the document numbers and the document names, but it's one document. So scrolling all, you can see scrolling all the way down, all the documents have been compiled together. So they've been brought together into one PDF. So you don't have to go through that pain of Adobe Acrobat and bringing things together and trying to edit it all together. We just do that for you, which is really nice. And then if you want to do it a little bit more of the old-fashioned way and just get a file, get a folder, zip folder out with just the index and all the documents, you can absolutely do that. You can export it that way if you wanted to. And then just on that, actually on the format, if you do export it as a zip as well, you can have it as a Word index or a PDF index. It's completely up to you. So lots of flexibility, standalone module. Even if you just wanted to create a matter, switch on the binders functionality and say, I'm just going to use it to create a binder. Forget the lists, forget data room when it comes. I just want to create a binder, drop the documents in and do it. You can absolutely do that with binders. So we think it's a really big step forward in that binder workflow. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back now into the slides, and I just want to talk a little bit more about vision. Where are we going? So what we really want to do with Legatics, and I think I've alluded to some of this as we've been going along, is we want to really transform the way deals are done, but not just closing a deal, but actually how a deal is done from start to finish. So we want to take on more of that process, more of the workflow of a transaction from start to finish. So we're going to try and broaden out a little bit, but we want to make sure that we're connected, that we're intelligent. So we're doing things in a smart way within the system, and that we're streamlined. So we always ensure that efficiency is at the heart of everything that we do. So we want to just give better processes, better transparency, better control over the entire deal lifecycle. I guess there are 4 key areas that we feel are important for the delivery of that. First, full transaction lifecycle. So this is one that's I actually like personally, this is quite close to my heart. I really feel like transactional lawyers need a system where they come to get deals done, and they're not just having to stitch together different solutions to try and do different bits of it. I want one home where lawyers know that's where I come to get deals done, and that's what we really want to aim for, is taking on more of the workflows, the processes, the activities across transactional work. Insights and control. So if we're able to operate more along that life cycle, we're going to generate a lot of data. We already generate, and we already have a lot of data within the system as well. So what can we do with that? Can we generate more insight? Can we give users more control, more data to make strategic decisions? We've got some great data locked up in whether it's project management data, list data, whether it's data within the documents, binders, users, companies, offices. There's so much information, matter information, that can deliver a lot of insight. So we're going to be looking at how we can deliver that insight using that data. Connections. So this links in with my point on the API and our need to build out the API. We want to connect with these tech stack. We don't want you to look at us and think we've got a connected tech stack over here and Legatics is something separate and doesn't connect. It has to connect, and we will make it connect. And then AI powered efficiency. Now, you can't go on LinkedIn without seeing some crazy post about AI and what people are doing with AI. It's obviously everything anyone's talking about at the moment. We know we need to think about AI and how we bring it into the platform, but our key thing is it's about enhance before we expand. It's about how we sensibly use AI within the platform to make workflows, processes better. It's not about gimmicks. It's just about how can we use AI maybe to improve the list process or the binding process, or how can we give better access to information within the system using AI. So we're going to be thinking really, really carefully about this. And this is one of our key initiatives over the next few months, is really thinking about how we use AI. Okay, so just to talk a little bit more about the first point, the transaction management. Now, I've just mapped out here, this is more kind of M&A type deal, but from a transactional perspective, there's a lot more that goes into a transaction than a lot of people realize. From initial engagement with the client and defining things like the scope or the team, the timeline, some of that project management, through to the structure of the deal, through to diligence, actually drafting the documents, getting the right approvals to do the deal. Then you get to signing and close, where a lot of our functionality comes in around checklists and executing documents and managing CPs and post completion as well. But then obviously when you buy a company, there is a life cycle to that, and there will be some reorganization or disposal as well. So it almost comes full circle. And this is what we really want to tackle more of. I'm not saying we're going to deliver everything on this slide. We're not. What we want to do is deliver more of it. Start to try and optimize more of the deal process and give those tools within Legatics. But then we also, like I said earlier, need to work alongside, and this is where the connectivity point comes in. So we'll have Legatics and it will help with a lot. But when it comes to practice management, for example, could we integrate with practice management systems and support things like matter creation, matter inception? Can we link in with the billing process, look at the activities within Legatics, maybe integrate from a resource allocation perspective, project management perspective. But then you've got the productivity tools like Teams, Office, document management systems, even some of the AI tools like a Harvey or Agora that firms are now investing a lot in. How do we need to work alongside all of that? If we don't have the right connections, we don't have the right API, then we're not going to be able to do that. And so that's why that is so important, because we see a world where we need to work in that ecosystem alongside other tools, and we will be delivering that. And then one of the benefits of actually integrating as well is that we can really move our insights agenda forward. Like I said, we've got so much data within the Legatics platform itself, but if we integrate as well, it's going to allow firms to bring in data from Legatics, data from the practice management systems, data from their financial tools together, because actually the best insights are going to be delivered when you layer that information together, when you can look at time recording versus the activity and the timescales of a deal in Legatics. Bringing that together is going to derive better insights. So whether it's insights around the deal itself, or whether it's resourcing, or whether it's pricing, there are so many areas that we could explore. Some that could be delivered within Legatics, some that is just about data coming out of Legatics to inform that. But insights and helping firms make better strategic decisions with the data that they have across their systems is going to be, I think, is going to be a big focus for firms, but it's a big focus for us to unlock that and enable that. Again, like I say, and I've said it several times, we don't want to be a silo. We don't want to be siloed. We don't want to be an island. We want to work and play nice with other systems as well. But then let's come on to AI, and let's finish off with a few words about AI, because we've been thinking about this a lot recently. So like I said, we really want to redefine that end-to-end transaction lifecycle. And on that slide earlier, I said connected, intelligent. And what do I mean by intelligent? Well, we want to look at how we can use intelligence in every aspect of what we do in a sensible way to improve experience for users and help deals get done better. So we imagine eventually a world where potentially deals or elements of deals are managing themselves. Maybe risk is being flagged, deadlines are being tracked, next steps are being suggested. Maybe lawyers interact with the platform in different ways. It's more about using natural language to get updates or to draft summaries or find information within the system. checklists and the lists within the system could become more adaptive on their own. They might look at, okay, there's a new party on that document, but you don't have the right board minutes and the right approvals for that document, for that party to enter into the agreement. Would you like to add these to the list? We can start to look at how we can make lists a little bit more intelligent and reactive, and also look at how we can use AI to get into the documents themselves and understand the insights from the document, whether that's clauses or it might be just summarizing the document. Give me a quick summary of this SPA, or summarize the changes in this SPA. And then using AI to look over the data within the system, and we can start to maybe predict issues. Maybe that's about timescales or resourcing, or issues with the documents themselves and how the list is put together. There's lots we could do, and we imagine a world, and that's the key word. We're imagining a world where this is possible, but it's about taking the right baby steps towards that world, and making sure that we are delivering value, but not being gimmicky. Okay, so we went through an exercise recently where we started to rethink about where could AI play a role within Legatics, and we mapped out a few different areas. It broadly kind of fell in 3 key categories. So transaction execution and automation. This is the enhance before expand point. So this is the enhance bit. How can we use AI to make the lists better? How can we use it to perhaps allow a binder to be automatically created by just dropping files in, automatically sort them into a logical structure in sections, create the list? Obviously, still with a human in the loop checking over that, but maybe that process is even smoother than we've just seen with the binder module. Signing, can we use AI to help with the signing process, spot missing signatures, compile things together, generate things like the signature blocks? And also data rooms. When we launch data rooms, a really interesting concept is if the lawyers have the DDQs, the information they've been requested for, can we use AI to actually spot holes in the data room? Say, this was requested, there is no information on this employment dispute that was mentioned in the DDQs, or something like that. So you can start to actually spot gaps and suggest you need to fill those gaps or plug those gaps, or it doesn't tally to what you've been asked for. So there's lots of ways we can use it to enhance the existing modules that we are going to have within Legatics either now or very soon. But then there's also insights and client experience. So I think there's also ways that users can get better insight from the platform using intelligence. So conversational assistance. So can we provide a better way for lawyers to come in and say, give me a 5-line summary of this deal, or summarize the documents that are outstanding, or which documents should I send, which documents should I chase, or give me a summary that I can share with the client about this document, about this deal, and the things that we're waiting on from them. Loads of opportunities for that kind of conversational style, and it just cuts down on the effort that the lawyer has to put in to compile those summaries and find that information. Could we look at the documents themselves? Like I said, summaries, or reviewing documents and clauses, or comparisons. Deal intelligence, which is the point about using AI to review deal data and provide suggestions and check this deal looks like it's good, or there are risks that we anticipate with this deal based on previous deals. And generative reporting, there's some really interesting things you can do with reporting now through natural language, where you could say, give me a report, show me all the deals that we're doing across, broken down by the offices, and then the deal type per office as well. So you don't have to have these pre-built. You could just use natural language to ask. And then client portal. How can AI unlock better client service delivery? So if one of the use cases of AI is better access to knowledge, could firms use Legatics to surface up that knowledge better to their clients, so clients can come in and actually ask questions, interrogate things, rather than just get a binder of all the documents that they have to then sift through and find the answers? Could they actually interrogate the binder, find the information? Could the clients find the information they need, like based on the investment covenants, can I take this action at the board level? Yeah, and you'll be directed to the areas of the document that actually provide the answer. Again, none of this we're not saying that this is coming on the roadmap. We're not saying this is definitely going to come in the platform. These are just options for where we could go with AI within Legatics. And then finally, the third column is all about integration. So like we said, can we integrate with other tools, other AI tools? Can we integrate with the productivity tools users are using to make more of a seamless flow between something like Teams or an Outlook and Legatics, so that users aren't breaking their workflow or context switching? It may be that the the assistant, the deal assistant with the Legatics, is dropping summaries into Microsoft Teams for those that are interested in them, rather than having to come into the platform to get those updates. There is so much opportunity, huge levels of opportunity, and this is something that we're really focusing on and trying to understand more at the moment. And what I'll do is I'll just finish by saying what we really feel is there are, I guess, 4 areas that we want to really dive into over the coming weeks and months, and hopefully we'll be having a conversation with lots of you around this as well. Smart lists, so using AI to make those lists adaptive and reactive and suggest changes and optimize lists based on context. Smart binders, that was the point about dropping the documents in and automatically sorting them, and then perhaps an interface to interrogate those binders in different ways. Deal navigator, it's a term that we're using based on that's the conversational assistant. What information and insights can we deliver through a conversational interface? And then document summaries as well. So summarizing documents within the platform, so you can get a quick update on what does this document say, or how does this document differ from the previous version. You'll get those summaries. So that is a kind of a whistle stop tour in 45 minutes. I'm very pleased I've hit that deadline as well. Like I said, the aim of this was really to give you an idea of where we're coming from over the last 12 months, what we're working on now, and then what we're thinking of next. And hopefully that's given you a view. But I'm going to pause there and I'll stop sharing. I suspect there may have been some questions coming in as we've been going. So I think, Kirsten, I think you were going to be monitoring the Q&A. I don't know whether we've had any questions come in.
Yeah, Rob, we've had quite a few questions coming in, quite a few about binders and also the data room, quite a lot of interest there. So just flicking through to see what we can get through in the next few minutes. Is there a way to customize how documents or sections are numbered in the binder?
So at the moment you probably saw this in the binder, we're using simple numbering, so just sequential numbering. Sections aren't numbered yet. When we were doing the work to think about how we were going to put this together, there were a lot of requests that flexible numbering. So again, a lot of what we do, it starts somewhere and then we'll iterate on that. So we've started very simple to start off with. We will explore support for different numbering styles. So we've kept it basic. We're going to see how it lands, see what the feedback is, and then we can go from there. But yeah, it is something we're aware of and something we're definitely thinking about. But for the first iteration of binders, the numbering is going to be pretty simple.
Okay, great, thank you. There's quite a few questions, people asking the similar sort of things. Can we show more metadata in the table index, for example, parties or dates?
Yeah, so again, this is very similar. So we know that a lot of the binder indexes now will be generated almost by using the completion checklist as the basis for that, which has a lot more information around the parties and the dates that things were signed. Again, to keep things simple in the first iteration of binders, you'll be able to bring in document name, document number. That's a lot simpler from a UI perspective as well, because it's just about reordering the documents. But we do want to bring in more metadata. So we would like to add extra fields, but that's just going to require a few additional UI components and how we lay that out, and that binder builder will have to change a little bit to support that. So as you can see, we focus more on the content style index for the time being, and the configuration options there. But absolutely, in very short order, we will be coming round to look at how we make those table indexes better and bring that metadata in. So yeah, it's another one that we will be focusing on.
Great, just checking the time. There's a couple more binder questions. So when you export a zip, do the files stay in folders?
Okay, so not right now. So it's a very flat fold. It's a very flat structure. So you might have in the binder the sections, subsections, and the documents within that. And each of those carry a number, but when it exports, when it's a zip, it's the index, and then it's all the documents with the number. We don't essentially put them into folders based on the sections they're in. There's a few reasons why that is the case. So around the file path limits that we can have make that kind of folder nesting quite difficult. So we'd have to look at shortening file names, and then that starts to create other issues. So we did think about it. but we decided actually the easier option to start off with, because you can still get all those documents out. They're all still numbered and you've got an index that puts them all into context. We've just gone with that kind of flat structure to start off with. But again, a lot of this is just we get it out there. We just want to see how it's being used and we'll see the feedback and then we'll react accordingly. But yeah, so not right now, but potentially in future.
Great. I've got a really good question now thinking about that client experience. Can I share a binder download link without the recipient needing to log in?
Yes, this is like, I mean, this is the great question because you saw there, you can generate the binder and then you've got the kind of download links. One of the purposes of getting a binder is because you want to share it with the client. So if you're able to send that out as a get an email link and they can kind of download it, great, without them accessing the system, that would be really nice. And the way we've done it with generating a binder and then exporting it actually makes that a little bit easier for us to do in future. But we haven't done it. Again, this one's more to do with security and access control. Again, if you create a link that allows someone to come to a link to download something, then there's some other additional controls you'd want to put on that about maybe like link expiry and access, etc. So there are some security concerns. So because people can still download and share now, we just felt that was the best way to go with the first iteration of it. But again, we will look at this and see what we come to, and maybe we'll introduce those options to email out to participants that are outside the platform.
Great. Just a few more questions. Just moving on from binders. Will data rooms have a Q&A functionality at launch?
So yeah, I mean, this is one of those areas where I said there was lots of functionality in some of the other providers that we're starting a little bit simpler. Actually, with this one, it doesn't have Q&A to start off with, but actually Q&A is an area that we're looking at and exploring in a bit of a broader sense, because I mentioned it on that call around DDQs, due diligence questionnaires, for example. There's actually lots of workflows within a transaction where questions get asked, not necessarily in a kind of diligent sense. So actually the way we're thinking about this is we're looking at whether we could have a separate Q&A module that could be used for something like a diligence exercise, but it could also be used for things like DDQs, or maybe used for disclosures or verification, or there's lots of other processes where there may be an item and a response. And so we want to try and make that functionality as broad as possible so we can tap into other workflows and not just be very specifically focused on Q&A for data rooms. So it's not there, but we're going to think about it in a much broader sense.
Great. Are there plans to support commenting in data rooms soon?
So yeah, I can see why this would be requested, because when you're reviewing documents in the data room for a due diligence exercise, sometimes it's nice to kind of like make comments or tag or feedback. So no, there's no commenting to start off with, but the document viewer that we're introducing, which will allow documents to be opened in the browser. We use a third-party provider for that, and there's lots of functionality within that offering, and it may be something we can add in future. So we are going to look at that. We're going to look at what other things we can introduce to that file viewer to make it even more useful. So commenting might be one of those areas. So it's not a big focus right now. It may be in future, but this is certainly one that we would just like to see how data rooms gets used first. And if this becomes a blocker for people, then we can potentially look at it. But no, we're just focusing on viewing the file without necessarily interacting with it too much at the moment.
Okay, great. And just cognizant of the time, one last question. Can we get a data room permissions report or things like watermarking?
So we've got I mean, you can see the permissions within the platform and what's been applied. I know sometimes you can download a big long expanded list of groups and roles and users and which permissions they have within it. We've kept permissions actually quite simple for data rooms, which hopefully makes monitoring permissions and who's got access to what a lot easier. So there isn't going to be a kind of a downloadable permissions report to start off with, but you will be able to audit the activity within the platform and see the permissions within the platform. Yeah, and there's lots of other things. There is lots of other things around digital rights management I know is important, like the watermarking and other things that other tools have. Again, it, I know it's important in some processes. It feels slightly retro to me with the watermarking, yeah, but we are just focusing on, can we provide a space where documents can be provided securely and accessed with good levels of control and permissioning, and then we'll assess whether we need to put additional digital rights management on top of that in due course. It's a good question though, but we're going to keep it under review.
Okay, and I think that's probably all the time for questions that we've got now, Rob. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining. I appreciate you giving up the hour of your time to listen to what we've been doing and what we're doing next and how we're thinking about transaction management. So thank you very much. As I said at the start, this has been recorded, so the team will put this together and circulate this recording out. If there are any questions we didn't get round to, I'll go through those and answer them as best I can, and we can circulate those around with the recording as well. So I mean, the last thing it just leaves me to say is, thanks for giving up your time. And if anyone's at ILTA next week as well, it's worth me mentioning I'm going to be there. So if anyone would like to talk some more and they're going to be there, then just drop me a line and we can grab a coffee and have a chat. And if you want to see any more of the functionality, we can. So thank you very much, and hopefully speak to you all soon.